had a big police dog. I heard this story right from their mouth. A big police dog. And those Matson boys and Alfred Stary, they had fixed up a poison pill. I guess I like to talk.
Yes.
Yeah. But there are many subjects to talk about, experiences of life. And I have my share of experiences. And the one I have in mind now, it started in, let's say out there in the Pacific. It really started when I came to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. And that was in the southern hemisphere, but the fighting had already been done there. It was this particular experience that I had, I've reviewed it from time to time and time again. But we were on our way back from Tokyo, Japan. I was on a troop ship. The war had ended in September, and this was maybe January, the end of January. We had been in Shanghai, China. That's an experience in itself. But then when I come back to Yokohama, I had orders then to report to a certain troop ship and bag and baggage that I was returning to the United States to be discharged honorably up to that point, and then conclusively too. Yeah. So I went aboard a troop ship, and that troop ship was much bigger than a cargo ship. I think it could handle about 1,000 soldiers, you know, to be discharged on wherever the attack was. But that was the troop ship we came back on. And we left Tokyo Bay, Yokohama, in Tokyo Bay, the ship did. And then we took the Great Circle route to San Francisco. Now, I'll briefly explain. Would you know what a Great Circle route is in the Navy? Well, anyway, it's the shortest distance between 2 points is the Great Circle route. And that route took us into the northern latitudes. And of course, the Pacific wasn't that friendly. The weather was cold, it wasn't freezing. The wind for the whole journey was very chilling, and it was damp, and it wasn't comfortable. For the first 2 weeks I stayed below decks, and you didn't have anything to do but loaf, you know, and wait for your journey to go over. It sort of tires up. But the third week, then we were getting closer to North America, and I went up on deck. And the deck was empty, no sign of life there. The wind was pretty good wind. It was damp and cold. And but I dressed warm. I was willing to get a good whiff of this northern Michigan air, you know, cold. And I'd go up there in the morning for 2-3 hours, sit down on a hatch cover. It was about 20 feet square, about that high. They could take the hatch cover off and put the Admiral's car in there and so on. But it was a good place to sit down, about 12, 14 inches. And I'd sit down in that same place. And I had done that for about 2 weeks. And we had about 4 or 5 days to go. So I would sit down there. And then one morning, we were about 3 days out of Frisco. We had payday that morning. I was up there sitting down, and the wind was still raw, cold, and damp. There were slight slight white caps, you know, the big ship wasn't rolling very much, but there was a little movement. And I sat down right there, where I was sitting down on the hatch cover. And pretty soon, didn't see anybody on deck for those 2 weeks. There was no work to do up there. Painting had been taken care of. It was, the wind blew all there was no debris, but there was nobody on deck. But then I returned to sit down there, and pretty soon there come one man come down the middle of the ship. And when he got to my place, I said, "Oh, that's Lester Block. That he was in boot camp with me, and the whole while he was Jewish, but he was one of the deck force, kind of deck. But Lester Block was coming down, right down the middle of the ship and going aft, and he saw me sitting there on the hatch cover, and he made a right angle turn, and he come to me and he says, "Lappy, borrow me $2. There's a crap game going on in the hold, and I feel lucky. I'll split with you." I said, "No, Block, you ain't getting any money from me for gambling. I'm a Christian now, and I think gambling is a sin." And Lester Block had the answer. "Oh, no, it's not a sin. Gambling isn't a sin. Everything in life is a gamble." He says, "You cross the street, you're in a gamble, you might get hit, you go into business, you're gonna fail, you can fail. Everything is a gamble." So I said, "Well, I don't know about that, Block, but you ain't getting any money from me to gamble." So he took off. Well, that was that for that day. The next day I went up there again. The weather was the same. I would say about a 25 knot, mile-an-hour cold wind, and there were little white caps. I even saw a whale out there shooting water up. That's the first time I saw a whale. That I remember that from that morning, and had Lester Block had already been over, hey, and he had says, "Yeah, everything is a gamble." I said, "Well, I don't know about that, but you're not getting money." So the next morning I went up there again, and I went to walk out to that hatch cover. The wind was still up, everything was the same, and there was a slip of paper about this big, right there where I sat down. I would sit here, and that slip of paper was right there, and when I was like from here up to the wall away from it, I figured, funny the wind doesn't blow that away. So I walked up, you know, and I sat down, and I said, "Well, I'll see what it says here." And the title was, "The Difference Between Gambling and Risk." Many will tell you that everything in life is a gamble, and that, of course, is not true. In order to win in gambling, you win at the expense of someone else's unwilling loss. That was the punchline. The success in gambling depends on another's unwilling loss. While in business, you don't take a gamble, it's called a risk. If you succeed, some people might benefit from having a suitably located grocery store or whatever, gas station. If you succeed, they will be served. It will not be a penalty for them, it will be to their advantage. That's what was on that little slip that the wind had not blown away. So I figured, well, I can buy this. This makes sense. And I took I took it with me. I took that little slip with me and put it in my locker. I said, I'm going to take this with me now that this is worthwhile. This is a very good experience. And then when it got time to leave the ship, I looked for that, what I could have done with that little slip, and it had disappeared. Almost as mysteriously as it had police dog. I heard this story right from their mouth. A big police dog. And those Matson boys and Alfred Sawyer, they had fixed up a poison pill for that dog and thrown it over the fence, and that dog gulped that piece of meat with poison in it, and it died. And Pete Rasmussen didn't know what the dog had died of, so he sent the head to Lansing to be analyzed. I think he had the pull for that, and the message come back, strychnine poisoning. So he deducted correctly, of course, that the Matsons and Sawyer boys had something to do with it. So his house was situated right between the two of them, where he lived, and they were close, short distances between them. Matsons lived to the west, to the safe side from the heavy winds, and Alfred Sawyer's house lived, well, I'd say maybe 50 feet from where Pete Rasmussen's house caught on fire, was set on fire. Well, according to Mrs. Matson, she was awakened one night, the week before, old man Rasmussen had been hauling all his furniture, and the trunks would be coming down the stairs at night, and he took them to another building that was safe distance. He had something in mind.